Hello folks, our Wimbledon coverage this year is sponsored by Local Tennis Leagues, the home of friendly, competitive tennis in the UK.
With over 10,000 players in local tennis leagues up and down the country, it's never been easier to find someone locally with a similar ability to have a hit with.
It really is tennis on your terms, competitive and with total control of when and where you play over 8-week rounds.
It's also a fun way to get fit, meet new people, make the most of your local park or tennis venue, and get those competitive juices flowing.
And it's absolutely open to all standards. You just need to be 18 or over to play.
So whether you're at the beginning of your tennis journey like me,
or a master on the court like me, there's something for everyone.
Once you're signed up, there's also the chance to win prizes, play for points, and receive a free tube of tennis balls just for playing your matches. You also get a host of other great benefits, including access to the Wimbledon ballot.
So what are you waiting for? Join Local Tennis Leagues today at www.localtennisleagues.com and use our exclusive checkout code weekly50 in capitals for 50% off your £18 entry fee.
That's www.localtennisleagues.com, weekly50 at the checkout. The link is in the description. So get ready to play some friendly,
competitive tennis
on a court near you.
Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel and Kim. On today's Wimbledon Finals catch-up, sponsored by Local Tennis Leagues.
Novak Djokovic wins his 4th straight Wimbledon title.
Elena Rybakina seals her maiden slam.
And Barbora Krejickova picks up her 9th Grand Slam.
Kim, today is the 10th of July and we are here to catch up on finals weekend at Wimbledon at Tennis Weekly HQ. We now know our 2022 Wimbledon singles champions. They are Novak Djokovic winning a 4th straight title and Elena Rybakina winning her maiden slam title. And I've got to say, Kim, I feel like with this tournament, the two champions we've ended up with, it has very much felt like a dose of the new and the familiar.
Yes, it has. We've had a bit of a tale of two halves across the two draws, I suppose, because, on the women's side, we've got fresh blood coming through, winning titles, and, pretty much anyone in the draw could have ended up winning, which is, to be fair, kind of what we said 2 weeks ago. Whereas on the men's side, it's Djokovic yet again, 4th straight title. Yeah, 7th Wimbledon in total. I think, I certainly was expecting this to happen. It has happened. I think, actually the final stay was pretty much par for the course as well. So, I mean, tennis is giving us these sort of two different aspects and angles, which is quite interesting for, different reasons. But yeah, I mean, it's been a good finals weekend regardless. The matches were entertaining affairs, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, and it's been a really hot weekend. Great weather. I feel that has graced us in London, that's really, I think, added to the tournament, just kept everyone in high spirits. So we're going to be talking about the men's final first, then the women's final, as well as wrapping up all the doubles. And we're also going to be revealing our collector set winner. So there's lots to discuss, as always, on the pod. But yeah, Kim, let's start with the men's final. Novak Djokovic defeating Nick Kyrgios in 4 sets, 4-6, 6-3, 6-4, 7-6. Novak Djokovic, 21st Grand Slam, goes one behind Rafa. He's now got 7 Wimbledon titles, which is equal with Pete Sampras and just behind Roger Federer as well. And as you said, it wasn't necessarily a surprise seeing Novak Djokovic in the final, but I think for quite a few people, it was a little bit of a surprise to see Nick Kyrgios in the final.
Yeah, I mean, he had some luck along the way. What with initially Berrettini, I guess, withdrawing from the tournament. That was in his section of the draw, but also Rafa, pulling out prior to the semi-final. So yeah, he obviously played one match less, but I'm not saying he didn't deserve to be there. He's obviously beaten his opponents on the other side of the net and had some good wins along the way, especially against, Tsitsipas and, come through in 5 sets against a few players as well. Just think he could have been out in the first round to Paul Jubb as well. So he's had to battle his way through. And he got off to a flying start really in the final today, clinching that first set 6-4. And doing pretty well in the second as well. They were both holding serve until kind of the latter stages. And that's kind of when it sort of started to turn for Nick Kyrgios. He started to bring in the behavior of old, I guess. He was venting a bit, especially at his box. And up to that point, he'd been pretty composed, and it seemed to just shift, didn't it? And that was really when the scoreline started to shift as well. I mean, what did you make of that? Were you, when you watched the first kind of bit of the match, were you thinking, this is Nick Kyrgios at his most professional? And then when that started to unveil, were you just like, here we go again?
Yeah, I think, Tim Henman, I think, said on commentary for British viewers that, he'd never seen Kyrgios this composed. And I certainly think the scale of the occasion, him being in his first Grand Slam singles final, this was a big moment for him. And it was fascinating to see how he was going to deal with that, and whether he was going to rein in his behavior. And it certainly looked like it was going that way. Majority of that first set, he was playing very, very composed. There was none of the Nick Kyrgios antics that we have come to associate with him, and he just got on with his tennis, and it was very, very good. I know we speak about Novak Djokovic. He has developed this habit of dropping the first set. He's done it, I feel like, a few times, in this tournament. He did it in his semi-final against Cam Norrie. And, Nick Kyrgios was able to get on top very, very early on. He was serving fantastically. He was very clinical coming to the net. And, Novak Djokovic, although you could see his tactics, you could see he was focusing his serve particularly on the Nick Kyrgios forehand. He felt like that was the weaker side, and I think that was a smart play. But certainly when it just showed that when Kyrgios kind of puts his mind to something and really kind of focuses on the task at hand, he's a handful, I think, for anyone, regardless of how many Grand Slams they won. He is a handful for anyone, and I think the first set certainly showed that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a handful for anyone when he plays, his best tennis. But in a way, you could kind of say that about anyone on the tour, or within reason. Tim van Rijthoven was able to take a set off Novak Djokovic as well. I think there's a lot that's been said about Kyrgios and his unfulfilled potential, and the fact that he's I don't know, some people say he's like a genius on the tennis court, but it's like, well, his game has come under inspection today in a Wimbledon final, and he's come up short. So maybe it's time for those people to kind of hush a bit now, because actually by the end of the match, Djokovic was at such a strong level. I think in a way Kyrgios just came out looking quite ordinary. But and also his behavior, when he started venting at his box, it's a bit like Medvedev. We know that Medvedev vents at his box quite a lot. His coach just walks out normally. I'm surprised that Kyrgios's team were accepting of all the abuse he was hurling at them.
Did you want a mass exodus from the player box?
Well,
I
mean, I felt sorry for them. It wasn't really fun. It wasn't nice to watch. Fundamentally, I think Kyrgios probably knows this. He knows how he needs to behave like he did in the first set. He needs to get all that activity going on, get that controlled, because that's, as you saw from Novak, and also just generally the great champions, they kind of keep it together, don't they? Bit like early days Andy Murray as well. He used to lose the plot a bit, didn't he?
Yeah, I'd certainly think Djokovic, obviously he kept it together throughout the match, and that was the big difference, I think, as the match went on. And I think you're right, Nick Kyrgios, although you'll look at those set scorelines and think they were quite close. For example, the fourth set went to a tie break, but at the same time, Kim, Kyrgios wasn't really getting anywhere close to Novak Djokovic's serve in the service games. He didn't come close to really breaking him, whereas Djokovic really kind of took his moments. And although there were times when I think Nick Kyrgios was looking like he was coasting towards an easy service game, going 40-love up, the pressure that Djokovic puts you under in those moments that you think you can, you may let your guard down because you feel like you're clear, that is when he is at his most dangerous. And I think we saw that in this match on the Djokovic, on his return game. And it was close, but at the same time, in those games, sometimes it was just kind of like Kyrgios rely on your serve, get to a tie break, and see where that ends up. Maybe you could push it to a fifth set. And I felt like that was what he was focusing on in that fourth set, because he really wasn't getting at all close to the Djokovic service game.
Yeah, I think obviously most neutrals were hoping for a fifth set. I mean, it would have spiced things up, I suppose. I mean, I still think Djokovic would have won, but perhaps it might have reinvigorated Nick, and he, perhaps it could have been different. But I mean, that did not happen. The tiebreak was pretty one-sided as well, so it wasn't even close in that tiebreak. But I mean, we had some interesting kind of interactions as well with this woman in the crowd that I keep seeing all these funny memes on Twitter, people going on about their 701st drink. Kyrgios was not happy with this woman in the crowd sort of muttering between like first and second serves. He complained to the umpire, who picked up his phone, seemed to be maybe doing something about it, but I don't think she was ever evicted. So
it was giving me flashbacks, Kim, to that lady who got escorted out of the Australian Open, hurling abuse at Rafa courtside, who I felt also had maybe a bit too much drink. But for me, it was a case of kind of classic sort of Nick Kyrgios, in the sense of, yes, I am chuntering during the match and I'm giving verbals to my team, but he was finding other, I think, feel like sources of annoyance. And I understand, players are hypersensitive to the environment around them, and maybe things that happen in the crowd that you think now the player's not going to be able to hear that. But it felt like Kyrgios his concentration obviously was elsewhere. And although it was quite funny hearing it, I think on the on the commentary and on the TV, it certainly was quite serious, I think, for Kyrgios. And although it sort of just faded into nothing, it just showed that he was kind of very irked, and his attention was elsewhere. And in a final against Novak Djokovic, you just can't let that happen and expect to come out as a victor.
Yeah, you can't sort of look to those external sources of frustration.
Maybe he wanted a drink. I don't know.
He's like, yeah, give me a drink as well. I mean, maybe that would have helped. Yeah, I mean, and the venting at his box, and then, sort of talking about this woman, it's kind of, yeah, just you have to really ignore those externalities and really channel into your inner core.
If you were in Kyrgios's box and he's sort of shouting towards you, what would you have done? Would you, because they were very supportive, they were standing up at the end of each point, fists clenched, they were looking at him, trying to be more positive and give him that that encouragement and that motivation? Or would you have done a Daniel Medvedev coach and walked out on your player?
I mean, yeah, you're there to support your player, so you want to, you probably accept that. I guess in this case he's gonna be a bit agitated, but I think, I don't know, after a certain amount of times I'd probably be like, right, you're not helping anyone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get out of here now. I'm gonna go and sit on the hill with a glass of Pimm's or something. But I mean, I see why why you'd stay, because you're there because you love and support this person. But yeah, I guess it depends on the relationship. When it's family, I suppose you're more likely to stay, aren't you? But it depends how well they might know him.
Because he technically doesn't have a coach. He obviously has a support team, and we saw them all on show in the player box. But he doesn't have a coach, and he talks about going on his own and figuring stuff out for himself. Doesn't tend to like working with a coach. And it's, in one sense, it's been impressive that he's been able to get to Wimbledon coachless. That is something I can't think of many players who have been in a situation where they've majority of their career they've gone through tennis without having a coach and have been able to reach the heights of a Grand Slam final. And perhaps that just shows the level of talent that he does possess. But at the same time, you just want someone to kind of get in a room with him, talk it out with him, because when he's spending all this energy, it feels just like towards his box, towards the fans, it's not going to help your case. And Novak Djokovic, he was just kind of very smart, went about his business. He went off the court as well to take what felt like a little bit of a tactical toilet break, whilst Nick Kyrgios was just there, just sort of waiting, and you just felt like at any point he was going to erupt on court. Fortunately, that didn't happen. There was one, I think, audible obscenity that led to a warning. But Djokovic was just too composed on the day. We know he's been in this situation so many times before, and you just felt if he kind of played his game, the longer the match went on, it was like he didn't almost like need to beat Nick Kyrgios. It just felt like it got to a point where Nick Kyrgios was going to beat himself.
Yeah, as is often the case. And I mean, going back to the fact that he doesn't have a coach, I mean, would you want to coach him? I don't think I would. I think I'd be on tenterhooks the whole time. I don't think I would feel like it was going to be a productive partnership unless Kyrgios majorly changed his behaviour.
I mean, it's going to be fascinating going forward because, we've got this on-court coaching trial being introduced into the tour, and we expect to see it at the US Open, later on in the year. And I would be, Kim, absolutely there for seeing on-court coaching with Nick Kyrgios and what that looks like. But certainly at the moment, it's just like a part of his game that he's happy to not have a coach, but it just feels very much flawed when you get into these biggest situations of all, Grand Slam finals, where it's like Novak Djokovic was very, very composed and was able to get the job done in 4 sets. It wasn't too difficult, I think, for Djokovic to go to a level I feel like players in the past in finals like Rafa, Roger as well have pushed him to, because as I said, Nick Kyrgios was there, he was going to beat himself up, and that was going to play into Djokovic's hands.
Yeah, and I don't think in the run-up to the final we'd seen necessarily the best of Djokovic. He dropped a few more sets than we have previously seen him do. But I think, obviously, he did enough in this final. He did play extremely well in those last 3 sets. But, he didn't have to go to extreme peak Djokovic like we see in those, some of those 6-hour epics against Rafa.
I mean, I don't think he was in peak Djokovic mode the whole tournament. I felt like we didn't really see the best of him, did we?
But even at his not at his extreme best, he was still able to win the tournament, and that's what the greats are able to do. They're not always going to play lights out tennis, but they get the job done. And I mean, it's funny because, well, not funny like ha, but it's ironic funny that Djokovic, despite winning this, actually goes down to 7 in the world rankings because of the lack of ranking points being awarded. So a lot of people saying, like, obviously that's not fair, and it's not. I mean, I'm sure. Well, I mean, I'm not sure how many points he's got to defend in the coming months, but it's just an ironic turn of fate as a result of the lack of ranking points.
And it could also get worse for Djokovic because we don't know if at the moment he's going to be able to play in the US Open in the later on in the year, given his status. But he got to the final last year. There's lots of ranking points there. If he can't go back and do that, then certainly he's going to drop down the rankings further. And I know that there'll be people out there saying, these players' ranking points don't really mean much to them anymore. They're all about the number of trophies and Grand Slam titles in particular. And that is true. But it's still a bit of a mockery when you see Novak Djokovic, the way he has been playing and winning Wimbledon, for example. It's not. It's a bit weird seeing him still down at 7 in the world.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember when he had that elbow injury, he went much lower than 7 and had to come back up. But I suppose as it stands, he can't play the US Open, can't play next year's Australian Open as it stands. I'm sure the rules will change for at least one of them. So maybe the lack of, the loss of ranking probably, well, it may not have that much material impact in terms of seedings for slams if he can't play those tournaments anyway. But it's just, it's another quirk that we've got at the moment that a lot of people are talking about. I mean, another sort of interesting point that we saw today was the Peng Shui protests. We had a protester in centre court holding up a sign, #where is Peng Shui? And obviously Wimbledon do not allow political slogans or messages to be, worn by players or in the fans or the, crowd or anything. So Wimbledon security removed the protester. I think it was an Australian guy, and I know he was sort of shouting out, "Oh, where is Peng Shui?" As he was being removed from the court. So I think there was also, I think I saw on social media that there was a handful of protesters, in terms of wearing these shirts and trying to promote the cause, raise awareness of the fact that we haven't heard about Peng Shui for months now, and they were handing out T-shirts on Henman Hill, I think, which was I don't know how that went down with the authorities.
Exactly. I mean, I think I saw earlier in the week groups of fans wearing these T-shirts, and you already felt that was pushing the envelope, and this was just was unwelcome, really. I think we've seen too many protests, to be honest, on during big matches on primetime courts recently, but I was quite impressed with how quickly it was dealt with. I was glad the protester didn't get onto the court itself, because we've seen that happen recently. I think back to Halle, where it happened during the finals. So I'm glad it got quickly kind of dealt with. And again, let's just go back to, I think I say this all the time, King, when I hear about these protester stories. Do it at the right place at the right time. And centre court on final Sunday, men's final, it's not the right time. And I was happy it was sort of quickly dealt with. And yes, this is this is an important topic, it's an important cause. But I think certainly there's better platforms to raise it on.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really affect the match, did it? Too much. So obviously we sympathise with the cause, but like you said, there is a time and a place, and I think maybe a bit naive to think that the Wimbledon authorities were just going to let someone promote that kind of slogan when they don't even allow big flags in, for Christ's sake, so they're quite on it, aren't they?
I mean, just going back to the action, Kim, and just talking about Nick Kyrgios, I know this is his first Grand Slam final. Do you see this as a turning moment for him, or do you think this is going to be a flash in the pan in terms of Grand Slam finals? You think he's missed his shot at becoming a Grand Slam champion, or do you think we will see him at this end of tournaments more frequently as time moves on?
I think this is a real opportunity for him to make this count in terms of his career by becoming ever more professional with each passing day. He's spoken about how previously at Wimbledon, when he got to fourth rounds or what have you, he'd be out at the pub the night before, and he doesn't do that anymore. He makes sure that he has a better kind of schedule, and that that's progress. That's kind of what you'd expect a professional tennis player to do. So perhaps he might think he's had a taste of a slam final now. He's perhaps, going at the setup, he thought, I could do this. And maybe it will make him, it will give him a kick up the bum to professionalize even more. Having said that, I think, can a leopard change its spots, or whatever the saying is he, how much can he really change? Does he continue wanting to be sort of a bit of a rebel in the tennis world? In which case, if his behaviour doesn't change, I don't really see him. I mean, he might get to another final. And if it was anyone but maybe big three in the final, he might be able to do it. So perhaps, in a couple of years when they've retired, but you could say that about anyone, couldn't you? To be quite honest, of this.
I think the thing that I was impressed by, or just annoyingly impressed by, was the fact that the all this energy that was given towards his box and all his sort of monologuing on court, despite that, he still produced a very good level of tennis that kept himself very close in terms of scoreline to Novak Djokovic. I think before we've seen him again do similar things, but it's actually been truly reflected in the scoreline when it's he's just lost a set in 20 minutes, or he's lost the tiebreak 7-love. But it's fascinating to me that he's been able to sort of marry the two together in this final, because I thought we always just sort of assumed, Kyrgios is talking to himself, he's going to lose now very, very quickly. But it didn't actually turn out to be that case, and it took only a few points here and there for Djokovic to really kind of seal a break, take the most of those opportunities that came to him, and really kind of assert his authority on the match.
Yeah, and there were a couple of crucial games, weren't there, when I think Djokovic was love 40 serving for the second set and was able to come back and win that game. And then he broke Kyrgios, I think, in the third set when Kyrgios was 40 love up. So those games, if they'd have gone differently, perhaps, would have been a different story. I don't know. That's tennis, isn't it? It's so many ifs and buts resting on, the slightest of points and margins, which are always very fine. So I think, I think overall, this didn't have as much controversy as a final that perhaps some people thought there might be, like us included. It kind of went, I think, par for the course. Like I said earlier, I think I'd predicted Novak in 4 sets. I knew it was going to be fairly close, like scoreline wise, but ultimately, the champion prevails. It's going to take some beating to defeat Novak on centre court. The last person to do that was Andy Murray back in 2013. Novak's got this ridiculous record on that court. He hasn't lost in, years. So it's really going to take something superhuman to do that. And that is not Nick Kyrgios in this moment in time.
I mean, there was a good debate I was reading about is Novak Djokovic more at home on centre court or on Rod Laver Arena. It feels like he's got his own spell on both courts, at the Australian Open, at Wimbledon. I mean, where do you think his game is in terms of, is strongest on what court surface? Because I feel like there are arguments for both hard court and grass court, maybe not so much clay court, but given what he's achieved, at Wimbledon, as you said, 4th straight title, 7 Wimbledon titles total, in line with Pete Sampras. Do you think this makes him the case and pushes it closer to him saying, actually, grass court, that is where I'm at home most. It's not so much down under in Melbourne.
He's a grass court specialist. No, I'm just ribbing.
I mean, he could be. I mean, he's a hard court specialist.
Well, I mean, everyone always says Rafa's a clay court specialist, but actually, he's, I would say, a specialist on all surfaces. I mean, yeah, like, I think with grass, it doesn't suit a lot of players. A lot of players find it very difficult to play on. So the chances of someone upsetting Djokovic on grass is probably actually less than on a hard court. Funnily enough, Djokovic has never been quite as successful at the US Open as he has at the Australian. So obviously they play differently, but yeah, I mean, he is the first person to have won 7 or more majors at 2 slams now, I think. So he's in a unique category. He's breaking records again, left, right, and centre, as have all the big 3. It's it's just absolutely mind-boggling what they're doing, what Djokovic is doing. But I think definitely he's equaled Pete Sampras's record at Wimbledon now. Only Federer has more Wimbledon singles titles for the men than he does. So, and I'm sure Djokovic will overtake Federer's 8. I feel that that's inevitable. Even at his age, if he stays fit, and he'll be eating that grass for many years to come potentially. I mean, it's a great celebration, isn't it? I do think that's a funny celebration. Although someone made the point that Djokovic is so strict about what he puts into his body, yet he's brazenly eating the grass of centre court.
Well, Kim, he did almost forget his anniversary with his wife Elena Djokovic. 10-year anniversary, and needed Sue Barker to bring it up and mention, so he didn't forget about it. So that was quite a fun moment on the court. I loved how he was just like, oh, happy anniversary, may have forgot about it, but hey, I've won Wimbledon again, this is for you.
Absolutely typical, honestly. I did enjoy seeing his family though, over the fortnight, and doesn't his daughter look like the spitting image of him? I just think it's like uncanny. But Djokovic household obviously celebrating tonight at the Wimbledon Ball, which is in the place that you had your little hospitality, I believe, Joel.
Yeah, I believe so. So we'll see We'll see what moves he breaks out and see how he scrubs up. But yeah, he will be enjoying himself. Two other champions who will be there as well will be Matthew Ebden and Max Purcell, who won the men's doubles championships. They beat Mektic and Pavic in a 5-set thriller, 4 hours and 11 minutes in a last set tiebreak. Kim, this was a really thrilling match. And Ebden and Purcell they got to the final, I believe, in the Australian Open earlier in the year, but their tournament was just comeback after comeback after comeback. I think I was reading that if this tournament had been best of 3 instead of best of 5, which is the case at all the other Grand Slams, they would have been knocked out in the first round, second round, the semi-final against Salisbury and Ram, and the final. So they'll be definitely one of those proponents of having best of 5 for doubles.
Yeah, I mean, they must be knackered now, but they've played a lot of tennis, especially also playing like the mixed doubles with Ebden. He got to the mixed doubles final. But yeah, I mean, they all credit to them. They fought their way valiantly throughout the tournament in many of the rounds. And, I think this match really in the final had 5 sets written all over it. I think I joked that it would go to a last set tiebreak, and it didn't disappoint. That is exactly what happened. And I mean, what is also remarkable, though, is that Matej Pavic was playing with a broken wrist. It wasn't his dominant racket hand, but it was, his other hand. But he has a broken wrist, and he was playing a 5-set Wimbledon.
Was it Pavic? I swear
final.
It was Mektic.
No, I think it was Matej Pavic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe they both had broken wrists, in which case that's amazing. They almost won the title. But yeah, I mean, all credit to the Australian pairing. They did deserve it, and I begrudge them for beating Joe Salisbury, but at least Joe Salisbury lost to the champion.
That is very true. That is very true.
Ebden and Purcell, full credit to them. They got to the Australian Open doubles final earlier in the year and lost to Kyrgios and Kokkinakis. So it's nice that they've managed to get a slam. Although Matthew Ebden, he's saying that they're sort of referring to themselves as the M&Ms. Max and Matt, I guess.
So there's some copyright infringement there.
Well, I mean, yes, twice over, not just because of the chocolates, M&M, but, the world famous doubles pairing between Mark Lopez and Marcel Granollers a few years back. They were called the M&Ms, so it's already been done. It's already
Well, maybe the M&M legacy is continuing on.
Maybe.
Through Ebden and Purcell from Spain to Australia.
I should start supporting them then. But yeah, the M&Ms, if any Spanish fans listening, hopefully you'll remember it was definitely a thing. But anyway, fair play to them. They won the doubles. So Australia do have a Grand Slam winner, although it's not Nick Kyrgios, but it's Ebden and Purcell. But let's take a quick break now. We'll be back in the second half looking at the ladies singles final at Wimbledon, so do not go anywhere. Welcome back to our Wimbledon Finals catch-up, sponsored by local tennis leagues. And now we're going to move on to look back on the women's final from Saturday. Elena Rybakina against Ons Jabeur. I mean, this didn't really go the way we were predicting, did it, Joel? I think we'd both predicted Ons Jabeur to win. We thought, she was the higher seed. We kind of thought she was obviously playing super well, had the variety to come through and get that coveted, first slam. But Rybakina on the day, after that first set, she was absolutely a woman on a mission. It was 3-6, 6-2, 6-2. Won it on her first match point, first championship point, I should say. And I loved most of all her reaction. It was just super calm. It was like, oh yeah, I've just won a match, not the Wimbledon title. It was really an odd way actually to win the match.
She almost apologetically made her way to the player box afterwards, to go and celebrate with her, with her team. But she played some fantastic tennis against Jabeur. Like you, I thought Jabeur and her variety was going to be too much for Rybakina, and it looked that way after the first set. Jabeur was getting a lot more returns in play than Rybakina had faced, I think, in her previous matches. And once the points were getting into the rally, Jabeur was kind of coming out on top. And early on, I was wondering. I think Jabeur went 3-1 up. She had break points to go 4-1 up, and I was just thinking, is this going the way like Ash Barty, Karolina Pliskova first set did, last year? Because Jabeur really started kind of positively, and I think really kind of embraced the challenge and being in a Grand Slam final for the first time, and you could just see that in the way that she started, but she wasn't able to kind of keep it up. And one of the reasons for that, I felt, was Rybakina and her movement at the net. It was a lot better than I was expecting. I think there's still question marks over her net game. There were some dodgy volleys at times, and her execution, I don't think, was as good as it needed to be. It wasn't as clinical, I think. But at the same time, she was able to kind of, I think, nullify the Jabeur drop shots that were coming quite often. But yeah, Rybakina was up to the task.
Yeah, I mean, I was very impressed because actually in that third set, I was fully expecting the momentum to shift back the other way. And it was Rybakina that looked the most comfortable. Jabeur, especially in that last game, a couple of sort of wayward errors from Jabeur. And I just thought, I thought, yeah, exactly. I really did think that she would give more. I'm not saying she wasn't giving or trying, but it's, she just seemed to get very frustrated. Perhaps she had also not underestimated Rybakina, but I think there was, Rybakina was just much more solid, big serving. And there were a couple of crucial games. I thought in that second set, she was a break up. Jabeur had, I think, 3 break back points. Rybakina was able to save them all, and then obviously went on to break. Jabeur again clinched the set, and straight away in that third set she broke. And the fact that she was able to maintain that lead, like she did against Halep actually in the semi-final, I thought her composure and her calmness was the most impressive thing actually. And I guess she carried that on, throughout the celebration afterwards, just really composed. And perhaps Nick Kyrgios should be on the phone. How did you maintain your composure? Give me some tips.
Yeah, because we spoke about that variety versus power clash of styles, but the more you watch that match, the more you realize there was a clash of styles in terms of emotion versus no emotion on the court. And I wondered whether, after the match, whether Jabeur just got too excited or was just too emotionally involved, with that first set, geeing up the crowd, playing to the crowd. And when it wasn't going her way, she didn't really have any answers to it. And as you said, the composure of Rybakina, who was very kind of, silent, a little bit like Krejickova. I imagine like Krejickova is, just very kind of silent, but very deadly and effective at the same time. And it was that sort of emotionless approach, I think, that really probably helped her deal with the occasion, because we spoke about in the past how she's not been able to really, I think in her last 4 finals, she's always ended up as the runner-up. And I think just being able to strip the emotion out of a Grand Slam final really helps, I think, just help level this match and make it feel like just one more match. And perhaps that helped Rybakina in her approach, particularly when she went down a set, that it didn't really kind of phase her or get on top of her, and she still had the confidence to back her game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's obviously so key, because we've seen it in so many finals, haven't we, where players just are so nervous, they can't perform, they can't play their game, and we never see the best of them. And you think, God, how on earth did they get to this final? Because they're just not able to perform. And this was definitely not the case. It was really nice to see that she was able to play her game and grow and develop as the match went on.
And we don't get a lot of comebacks in finals, do we?
No,
coming back from a set down, that is a very, very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, we see a lot of nervy first sets, growing, and then dropping the first set, growing into the match, maybe clinching the second, taking it into a third, and then it's flies back to the way of the other person who won the first set. We sort of see it sort of like clinging on rather than, right, I'm now taking ownership of this match. And I think, like, in terms of Jabeur, she should obviously be extremely proud. She's got to this point in the tournament, her first Slam final. I know this was the tournament that she was really earmarking at the start of the year, so I'm sure she is pretty gutted. But I'm sure she'll learn from this experience and work on that, and then it's a difficult day, obviously, for her and her fans, and I would have loved to have seen her win, but I'm super pleased for Rybakina as well. I mean, she's, I think both of them deserve to win it, and it was just Rybakina on the day a lot stronger. And I mean, I remember, Joel, I think this time last year, I'm sure I put her in like maybe my semi-final predictions or something. So I'm like kind of secretly chuffed, that she, like, I was just a year too early. But it's funny that, before this tournament, like, she had no form coming into this tournament. Like, she struggled this year with illness and injury. So there was nothing really to suggest that she was going to suddenly go on a run here. So anyone who did predict her, well done.
I do think, having a power game helps you, or a power-based game helps you, I think, just be able to bring it together, because I feel like it's a lot simpler than having a more varied game where you have lots of different shots available to you. Therefore you have lots of more opportunities, I feel, for everything to go wrong. So I think it's interesting how players who might not be playing well in the build up, who have this aggression based game from the baseline, big serving, big forehand, big ground strokes, I think it just shows that regardless of form, they're always going to be dangerous, because if they can put it together, and in my head it's easier to put that together than a more variety-based game, then they could end up as a Grand Slam champion. And Kim, I know you were just saying you were chuffed because of your predictions last year. Well, obviously the Russian Tennis Federation and all of Russia, I swear, as soon as she won, I've already seen was already seeing sort of comments from Russia being like, yes, great success for Russia, and obviously we know the whole kind of context there. I mean, what is your kind of take on that, in terms of like the fact that this has happened? There was no kind of like mention of it or hint towards it in the ceremony, obviously, but where do you think this kind of leaves the situation between Russia and Wimbledon, and the fact that we do have a Russian-born ladies singles champion?
Yeah, I think it's quite ironic, really, and I do wonder if the Wimbledon organisers are like, damn it, because obviously they were so intent on
foiled
banning
my attack.
Yeah, so intent on banning Russians and Belarusians but yeah, I mean, Elena Rybakina obviously not representing Russia; she's representing Kazakhstan. But when you look back at her upbringing, her parentage, where she still lives, I think she still has her official residence in Russia. She moved to represent Kazakhstan like 5 years ago, and obviously in her press conference, she was very complimentary, said she was supporting that Kazakhstan have always supported her, and she's representing them. End of. Someone did try to ask her to condemn the war, condemn like Putin. She did not answer that, and I think that's fair, because by answering something like that, it could be putting family at risk.
Just let her celebrate the moment.
Exactly,
let her celebrate the moment.
Exactly. I just didn't think that was an appropriate question to ask at that stage. But yeah, I mean, I disagreed with the ban on Russian players, so doesn't bother me that she's won Wimbledon, because I don't think the Russians should have been banned anyway from the tournament. So, but I think there's sort of a certain comedy value, or irony, I guess, against the Wimbledon bigwigs who made
Wait,
that decision.
I'm waiting for the memes, Kim. I'm waiting for the memes. But I think it's, for me, kind of, I almost still see this as like Russia's loss, because I think this has just shown them they let a Grand Slam winning talent slip through their fingers. They didn't give her the support that she needed at a younger age, and then she said, well, fair enough, I'm going to go and play for a different nationality. And I think in all seriousness, I think there would be kind of questions there in terms of like looking at talent from a younger age and how we support them or how we define them, because there are players who it might not necessarily happen for them straight away, but actually they need a little bit more time to develop. And I think it's, for me, like a big disappointment for Russia. I don't think they can. Yes, they'll obviously think, try and portray it as a big success in a moment they might get, but at the same time, I feel like it's just you let this player slip through your fingers, and as a result, it's doing great things for Kazakhstan instead.
Yeah, Russia's loss is Kazakhstan's gain. This is their first ever Grand Slam champion, so I bet they're very pleased with their decision to get her to switch nationality. And I mean, Russia, they haven't had a singles Grand Slam, a women's champion. Obviously, Medvedev won last year, but they haven't had a women's singles champion in quite a while. I mean, Pavlyuchenkova got to the final, didn't she, of the French last year? But it's been a really long time coming. So
do you see Rybakina as a one slam champion? I know I feel like on the ladies' side we do have this group of players at the moment that are in that one slam champion category, like Yelena Ostapenko comes to mind, Sloane Stephens. Do you think Rybakina will be put in that category, or do you see her being a multiple slam champion?
I mean, she's only 23, so time is like on her side. But there are so many one-time slam champions, aren't there, on the women's side? So I can kind of see. I mean, I wouldn't expect her to win another slam straight away. I think she's certainly obviously got the game in her. She's proved that this week. This fortnight, I should say. So there's no reason why she shouldn't be able to, but I'm not going to get carried away and say she's like the next big thing in women's tennis. I don't think that would be sensible to say, but there's no reason why she shouldn't. It's just making that consistency count. And, it's very different going into the next slam as a slam champion and having everyone looking at you with the pressure on. So I don't know like is the answer.
I feel like we're going to be adding to this one slam champion pot a lot. I feel over the next few years, given this draw was very, very open. We said that any one of the 128 players in the draw could win, and I don't think that's going to change come the US Open. And I think genuinely that's a reason to be, if you're a Serena fan, assuming she plays at the US Open, I think that's a reason to feel optimistic, because I just feel like the draws are just so open on the women's side. It's very, very hard to predict. It's very, very hard to know who's going to go deep. There seems to be a lot of big players who aren't in the best of form as well, which is adding a little bit of a complexity, and it's opening up these opportunities, I think, for players who are ready to kind of seize their moment. And certainly Rybakina has done that. Ons Jabeur has also done that. I feel like she will have her time at some point. I don't think she's going to go away and get too down in the dumps about ending up as the runner-up. Yes, she really, really wanted it, and I think she does have that drive and that hunger, and she's had that taste now that I do think that she's going to be there or thereabouts come the hard court swing in the United States. So it's certainly added another player to the conversation, I think, about who could be a Grand Slam champion.
I agree. I think she's got a fantastic game for the hard courts, obviously, and we've seen her previously put these streaks together of reaching consecutive finals. And I think it was quite funny actually that she managed to win this one, because we were saying about in our previous pod, her finals record is not great, but it's like all those finals she lost, totally worth it, because the main one that she won was this Wimbledon final. So it was a nice sweet irony there. But I mean, good luck to her. She's done fantastically well, and beat Halep en route as well, who was playing awesome tennis. So absolutely deserved victory. Women's doubles, Joel, we had a very established doubles pairing between Krejickova and Siniakova, the Czech pairing. They won their second Wimbledon title, their second slam of the season, and their fifth slam together overall. They beat Mertens and Zheng Shui. Straight sets, pretty straightforward, 6-2, 6-4, just over an hour's play. So yeah, that fantastic triumph for them too. What I think is funny, I've said it before, I think when they won, but they won the girls singles back in 2013. So they have been playing together a long time.
Wow.
And it's nice that they've transferred that onto the senior tour. But yeah, they've pretty much won everything they can except for the US Open. So just got to tick that off.
And they didn't have the opportunity to play at Roland Garros earlier this season because Krejickova had to pull out because she tested positive for COVID. So yeah, nice story for them getting back on track as a doubles pairing. I mean, they're pretty formidable. Like, I feel like Krejickova still has got a little bit of a way to go in singles in terms of getting back up there. I feel like she's dropped off a little bit over the last few months. But yeah, certainly in doubles, they're pretty imperious, aren't they?
They definitely are a really strong pairing. I mean, as are Mertens and Zhang, to be fair.
Yeah.
It was, I think, the top two seeds in the final. But yeah, the Czech pairing came out on top, which was, yeah, I guess nice for Krejickova because she didn't have the best singles tournament. I mean, let's just round up some of the other results, Joel, before we get on to the most important result of all, which is collect a set, obviously. We had the junior tournament obviously taking place. So the Wimbledon boys was won by a Croatian, Mili Polichak, if I'm saying that correctly. I think first Croatian player to win the boys singles. He beat Michael Zheng 2 tie-break sets. And we had the American Liv Hovde winning the girls singles against Luka Udvardy of Hungary, 6-3, 6-4. I was looking at some of the junior results actually this tournament because I watched when I went to Wimbledon last week, I watched this young German girl called Ella Seidel. So I was following her results because I saw her win in a last set tiebreak. It was quite a dramatic match. So I was wondering how she would do. I think she actually lost to Hovde en route. So
I mean, the one result for me that really stuck out was the girls doubles final because we had a champion from Africa, and it was Kenya's Angela Okutoyi winning with Rose-Marie Niekamp. Kim, I was reading up on Angela Okutoyi earlier, and it's an amazing story what she's done to even just get to Wimbledon. She's not even... I think she literally played on grass for the first time like a few weeks ago. But she was born and had time in a Nairobi orphanage before getting to Wimbledon, and yeah, first girl from Kenya to play at Wimbledon for more than 40 years. So an amazing story there and then just to get there and to go on to win the doubles tournament. I mean, that's seriously impressive.
That is amazing. Yeah, I mean, fantastic news. And yeah, what a story. I mean, when she makes it onto the senior tour, I can imagine there's going to be a lot of chat around that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've had some disappointment in the wheelchair results today as well for Britain. We had Alfie Hewett in the final against Shingo Kuneda. Alfie Hewett served for the match 4 times, but it was not to be. Kuneda won in a last set tiebreak. He won 7 points in a row from 5-3 down in that tiebreak to win the match. So obviously Hewett bit gutted, as he said afterwards, but again, another fantastic match. Had a great semi-final, really entertaining final. Just wasn't to be.
And it was doubles disappointment as well.
Yeah, I know. Him and Gordon Reed lost in the doubles as well to Kuneda and Fernandez. So yeah, I think that was ending their run of 10 consecutive Grand Slam doubles titles. So I mean, it had to end at some point, didn't it? 10 is a bit ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, fair play and well done to their opponents. Which does bring us on now to collect a set, Joel, because it's the most important result, as I said. Not a particularly high scoring collector set this time round.
Definitely not between us either.
Oh no, we both got all of ours completely incorrect. And we actually haven't had to go to a tiebreaker this time round, which is interesting. But we do have a winner, which is Phil. So Phil Mac 17 on Twitter. Well done, Phil. You got 2 correct answers.
Wow.
Yeah, he got Serena right and also Rafa. And Phil had put Kyrgios to win. So really, really close on that one as well. Could have been 3. But we'll be in touch with Phil to get him a special Tennis Weekly prize for that. And also
the new
shout
mug,
out
Kim. Really
the
exciting.
new mug.
The new mug. They're on your doorstep at the moment. I hope no one's pinched them.
Oh no, I'm sure they'll be fine. But yeah, yeah, new Tennis Weekly mugs. But yeah, special shout out also to Topspin Lobber. He was the only one to get Iga Swiatek correct. And also shout out to Andrew Davies Casting, also the only one to get Coco Gauff correct. So yeah, I think the most correct prediction was Rafa. And yeah, everyone else, not. It's a very difficult tournament to predict.
Less said the better.
Yeah, but well done everyone who took part, and we'll be back as always for the US Open later this year for our next edition. We have more tennis though to talk about before we go for today, don't we, Joel? Because we've got some tournaments happening this coming week. There is life after
Grass
Wimbledon.
court season is not over, Kim.
Yeah, it's still going on. People are clinging to it. There's a tournament out in Newport in the Hall of Fame and in Rhode Island, which Andy Murray is playing, which is exciting. But he's got the likes of John Isner to contend with, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Maxime Cressy, Tim van Rijthoven, and Feliciano Lopez. I mean, it's a very, very good lineup.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be very exciting. And Max Purcell is there as well,
Kim.
No, in all seriousness, Murray, I think he's got quite a good draw. He's got Sam Querrey in round 1. He is seeded, Kim. He does not need a wild card to play tournaments, it feels like, anymore. That achievement is now with Stan Wawrinka, who I feel is like new anti-Murray, who's got a wild card into Bastad. Dominic Thiem is also playing Bastad, so can he get that elusive win on the ATP Tour? He plays Rusevori of Finland in the first round. Feels quite tight. Casper Ruud is the top seed. We know he loves playing these sorts of events, and going back to the clay, he'll certainly feel right at home. And we've got Lausanne and the Hungarian Grand Prix, which are on clay on the women's side, both 250s. And yeah, Kim, what interests me about the Hungarian Grand Prix is that there is actually a Formula One Hungarian Grand Prix, so the tennis tournament as well. It for me, it's just like confusing matters completely.
I mean, if Lewis Hamilton wants to turn up on a tennis court instead, I mean, imagine if he went to the wrong Hungarian Grand Prix. He might look a bit out of place stepping onto court with
a women's
the
draw.
Likes of Anna Bogdan.
Special exemption.
Yeah, I think he's probably quite nifty at tennis, to be fair.
I think I've seen him on a tennis court,
with his dad, playing tennis. Yeah, I think I probably shared that with you. There was a photo of him meeting Rafa in Tokyo many years ago, and I thought, oh, how nice, my two favourite sports people. Just on the note of the Bastad tournament, I noticed in the draw we've got Aslan Karatsev and Nikolosh Basilashvili potentially meeting in the second round. Now, interestingly, there's been out on Twitter reporting today that a German sort of newspaper has done some digging, and I mean, these are allegations at this stage. We don't know if there's any truth behind them. Allegations of match fixing featuring both of those players and a former coach. So, I mean, we won't go too much into it, but we'll have to see how that story develops because, it doesn't sound good.
You definitely know that story is going to rear itself if they face each other in round 2, which could happen. So we'll have to wait and see. But we've got Danielle Collins and Belinda Bencic in Lausanne as the top seeds, and Krejickova and Trevisan in Hungary. So we'll see how they get on, getting in some clay court tennis before the American hard court swing turns up. But it's I always forget about these tournaments, Kim, because they're so like instantly after Wimbledon that it's just a reminder that just tennis, it's the sport that keeps on giving, isn't it?
Yeah, and I always find it weird to go from grass, have a few little weeks on clay, and then go onto hard courts. It doesn't really make sense.
Well, Kim, we've gone from clay to grass back to clay.
Yeah, and then they'll be going onto hard court again. It's like, have a tournament in Lausanne, fine, but make it a hard court one, or I don't know. I mean, you failed to mention that Caroline Garcia is in Lausanne.
I was just looking
so
at that.
The renaissance is going to restart. Trust me,
here
Joel.
we go. Well, and Yul Niemeyer is also in the draw, unseeded. So I'm curious to see if she can keep it up. Tatiana Maria also there. Could face Garcia, actually, in round 2. So there are some players there, certainly, who did well at Wimbledon. I'll be interested to see how they get on. But listeners, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this finals round by round catch up with Tennis Weekly. We just want to say big thanks for all of our listeners who have stuck with us over the last couple of weeks for our Wimbledon coverage. A big shout out as well to our sponsor, Local Tennis Leagues, for sponsoring our coverage. So we just hope you've enjoyed listening to us, playing along with us. We've enjoyed hearing your comments as well on social media, on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. So thanks for supporting us.
Absolutely. And we've got a little special extra episode coming, I think, in the next few days, which is not really Wimbledon focused, but it's can we reveal,
it's kind of
Joel,
Wimbledon
what it's
focus.
Kind of Wimbledon focus.
It's kind of Wimbledon focus. Yes, we've got we were fortunate enough to be invited to watch the preview screening of a John McEnroe documentary, which is going to be coming out in cinemas in the UK next Wednesday. We had the chance, I had the chance, Kim unfortunately wasn't able to make it, but I had the chance to speak to the director, Barney Douglas, and composer Felix White from the BBC cricket podcast Tailenders. I was able to kind of have a chat with them about the documentary, about John McEnroe, what they learned. It's really, really interesting. We're going to probably put it up on Wednesday or Thursday next week, so have a look out for that. But we obviously will be back into tour catch-up mode. Wimbledon is over. Let's get back into the tour catch-up. Get me a mysterious player, Kim, and a mailbag question. We will be back with our regular tour catch-up probably next Monday, so look out for that. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed listening once again to our Wimbledon round by round coverage with Tennis Weekly. Remember to subscribe to us on whatever device you listen to us on. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can also listen to us on the downloadtennis.com app. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
And you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Tennis Weekly Pod. So do give us a like and a follow if you don't already. And let us know all your thoughts and feedback and any comments and questions you may have. You can do that via email as well if you prefer, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out our website if you have a moment, www.tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back next time at Tennis Weekly HQ to catch up on all the latest events from the ATP and WTA tours. As I said, I think it will probably be a week Monday. So I hope you can join us then. Make sure to look out for that John McEnroe documentary episode as well midweek. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We will see you again soon.